off. Those of you that are online, we can't hear you. You can leave them on if you like. Would like to ask everybody, please, to hold your questions to the end. Those of you that are attending online, you'll see down in the lower right-hand corner of your screen a little chat box. You can enter your questions. We'll be accumulating those questions, and again, we'll be taking them at the end. Selena's going to say this again when we do get to the end, and Selena will be the last presenter. We'll have a mic to go around, and Mike will have the mic. So if you raise your hand, we'll take your questions, and those that are on the web can hear them as well. We'll read the questions that come in through the chat so that everybody can hear those questions. If you need to use the restrooms in that, those in the audience, they're outside and around. If you would duck under the screen if you come this way, or if you have room to go around the back, that would be appreciated as well. We are the New Mexico Public School Insurance Authority. Let me try that again. We're New Mexico Public School Facilities Authority, and it's in my mind why that is important is that all the work that we've done together through all of the schools has lowered the claims of insurance amongst the schools and their facilities just tremendously. It means that the spaces are better spaces for our children to learn. We've made a difference over 10 years. There's a long way to go. We never want to get to where we think it's good enough. That's why we're here today. We have here on the first slide that was working, but there we go. Let me try to get it to change. You could take it back to the first slide. Thank you. Our mission is that we partner with New Mexico's communities to provide quality, sustainable school facilities for our students and educators. It's easier said than done. We work for the public. There's multiple funding sources. There are lots of eyes on what we do, more now than there ever has been. To gain the public trust, and we'll talk more about this as we go through it, we have to have everything very clear. Communication's easy to understand, and of course in the construction industry, which is probably the most information-intense industry there is, every time we do something, it's a prototype. We have to communicate, and that's what this tool is all about. If people that are logging in cannot hear, if you would please say so on the chat box, lower right-hand corner. We'll be watching that. Let us know any difficulties you have, either video or audio. Thank you. Our system that we call SIMS, a Construction Information Management System, we developed with your feedback. As many of you have been with us since we started know, this is the third iteration. And every time that we launch a new product, it's better than the last one, but we've learned a lot, and we've piloted this, and we'll continue to pilot so that we have fewer inconveniences than before. We know that it's an inconvenience. Anytime that you get a new piece of software, and I remember Lotus 123 for spreadsheets, and Multimate, and then WordPerfect for that followed Multimate, as far as word processors. And even now, whenever we get a new update to Windows 7 from the previous Windows, it's a pain, because, okay, how does this work? Where do things go? We really paid attention to you. We've tried to make this a lot more intuitive than the previous versions, and we hope you agree, but we appreciate your feedback. You'll see as we present, we've set up a process to gain your feedback and keep this improving. You're our stakeholders. You're our partners. As I said before, this is complex business, and we have to be partners to move things forward. We have multiple funding sources. The school districts have their own. The state has some. We get federal dollars. Everyone have different accounting and have different customers of their own that we have to feed back to. This product allows us to do that. It's the first time ever that we've been able to track all the way down to the line item within a payment application, specifically where that funding source came from and how much of that funding source was used on that line item of the payout. This will give the accounting that the public wants, no matter who is providing it, and that's the trust we have to keep. not only is this new to us, we believe, best that we can find, this is also new to the country. And we hope we can help more than just New Mexico. We also offer ball and cord accountability. That's something we've had in the previous versions. It's greatly enhanced here. Who has the documents? When are they expected? When are we going to get them back? Time is very important in construction and development. And overall, this will allow better and more effective communication and effectiveness in management. The state legislature has put about $2 billion directly from the state into schools over the past 10 years. That has matched up at a minimum of another $2 billion from the school districts directly. And that's simply the dollars that are under our control or our oversight. The districts themselves do many projects, and this particular tool is available to them to use on those projects as well. And we encourage that, and we support that. I won't repeat a lot of what you can read on this slide, but again, it's for the benefit and behalf of the public. If it doesn't benefit, we don't want to do it. We need to be adding value. We are beyond proof of concept with this system. We have developed this software system differently from our previous versions. We've learned a lot. Wish we hadn't made the mistakes, but we learn as we make mistakes. And I hope you look at us that way, that whenever there's a problem, you can talk with us about it so that we can work it out. If we don't know about it, we can't fix it. This system we developed along with this vendor who we found outstanding, just totally outstanding. We've developed a requirements document over well over a year. We mapped out all of our processes that we thought we knew very well, and as we mapped them out, we found what wasn't work, what can work better. So we've improved, we believe, you'll see, the delivery of how we do construction as we begin to use this tool. It's not easy. It takes a lot of debating back and forth. As I said earlier, we have lots of you that have been involved in the development of this. So it's not just us coming up with the answer. It's working with the designers. It's working with the builders. It's working with all of you that have struggled with us on this journey to try to come up with a good product. Once we figured out exactly what we want, we documented it very well, and the next piece was really easy, right, John? And I'll introduce these guys here in just a minute. It's never easy. These guys are very good at producing it, but they were also very good at helping us define it. We don't expect any major issues. We'll do our best to help you. We've set up a net to be able to catch issues. The software itself will have a place to report issues. And that will give us the ability to fix things before they get entrenched so that you don't have to repeat things that don't work, and we all know they don't work. And we expect that we will all benefit. I want to thank you for everybody that has been a part of this development. I want to thank you for being our partners continuous to this point and on. I think in our New Mexico legislature right now, we have a lot of support still from the legislature, from the governor, from the schools. Our facilities have increased. We've actually reduced how broken schools are by half in 10 years. We've made more progress than any other state. It's because we have been focused, and it's because that we have worked, I believe, with all of you, and that we're a state that's small enough that we can communicate amongst each other. So thank you. It wouldn't happen without you. We've got a long way to go. The example I give is, okay, so we've made things twice as good. You've got 2 kids. Both are barefoot. You've got new shoes for one of your kids. You're halfway fixed. Are you? No, I don't think so. I think that other kid without shoes still needs shoes as well, and I think we all agree. John Antevi is going to be the next up. He is the CEO and founder of EBuilder. And then Joe Eberly is going to follow, and Joe is a solutions engineer. Following him will be Selena Romero, and Selena is our training manager. She's also our HR manager, and there's a reason for that. We believe that people and systems can't be separated. And so she'll be one of your main contacts as she'll introduce the other trainers as she gets up. Thank you very much. John?
Great, Bob. Thank you very much. You want to mute that when you're... There you go. Okay, so who is EBuilder? And what we wanted to do here, I'm going to have just 2 or 3 slides, I think maybe 4 max, and just give you an idea. As Bob mentioned, that there has been a history of PSFA using various systems in the past, and each time you learn from them. And what we wanted to do is really just talk about our character and our organization, so that as you start to use the tool, that you have confidence behind it when you run into issues, that someone's going to be there as a safety net. We've been doing this for a little over 16 years, which all that really means is we have the most arrows in our back. We had a lot of mistakes, but we have those lessons learned, and that's what makes us better, especially in this, go-around. A lot of school districts that we work with as well. Now, why do we really exist? And a lot of people would think that EBuilder exists to build a bunch of features and functions from a software perspective, and that's part of what we do in our organization. But this that you're seeing up on the screen is a huge poster framed that we have in our office, and it talks about our mission, our core mission, vision, and core values. And I'll start first with the mission. I'm going to highlight a key area, which is freeing up time and energy for society's higher priorities. And we've had many school districts talk about how they were able to get a deductive change order to the tune of $200,000 or $300,000. I'm thinking of the West Lynn School District, for example, in Portland. And they talked about how that's going to provide more books to the children, or an additional design element within a playground, for example. So these are the society higher priorities that we're talking about. Or if you're actually in the field building these projects, we have another gentleman that worked with us that said that if I can go home an hour early or not work on the weekends to develop these reports and spend more time with my family, that's what's important to me. So that's what really gets us going. And in fact, we see a lot of articles, one probably about 6 months ago, where school students and some of the teachers were asked to spend their own money to bring in toilet paper for the students because they couldn't make it into the budget. So when you think about how much money is spent in construction and what EBuilder is doing to help compress those dollars and make them go a longer way, if you will, it's really important to us as a company, and that's how we really gauge our success at the end of the day. Then we talk about our vision, where every customer is a reference. And again, I have to say that, Bob, you've been looking at these systems for 15 years and utilizing these types of systems. So I think when we first started EBuilder and had this concept of a project-specific website, which is what we called it at the time, people were still focused just on a brochure online. And there was Bob, along with his team, literally 15 years ago, at conferences asking all these different vendors, what can these systems do for me? So, I don't want to take it lightly what you said, that you've been doing this for a long time, and the third iteration it's just naturally going to get even better. And we're focused on everyone being a reference. So again, if you have issues, I think your Bob's team is going to talk about how you're able to funnel and channel that support questions within PSFA and then also directly to EBuilder. And we want to be in that constant loop, so that each and every one of you that are in the room today have a positive experience and will continue to be great references for EBuilder. And then we have our core values: integrity, teamwork, innovation, responsiveness. So through this process, I think, again, Bob's team can attest to the fact that many times they ask us things and we said, well, no, we don't think we can do that, or we can't do it, but here's a different way. So it's a very honest approach. From an innovation standpoint, if any of you are using iPads or your Android devices or iPhones, that's another innovation that we were the first to come out with, to have a fully functional iPad application that allows you to view a drawing online, view a photo, push an action item through the system, all through the touch of your finger. And those that have used iPads know that there's very little to no learning curve on those kinds of systems. Now, we all know, for those that haven't had exposure to these types of online tools, I just wanted to remind everybody quickly about construction can be very complex. Bob, the number of jobs that you have going on at any one time in a year roughly is?
200.
200, okay? Well, in every one of those jobs, and there's going to be, of course, the same architect probably on a handful of those jobs, but you have the program manager, the owner's team, the architect, and then you have all the constituents above. So Bob has all these individuals on his team, all the users. Many of you are users within that world, right? The architect has all their sub-consultants, so big world as well. Program manager, you guys do all that in-house, but you're doing scheduling, estimating, inspections. The contractor, they have all their subs that they're doing the actual work, and all the manufacturers and suppliers. Okay, and then there's state permitting, regulation, and entitlement that goes on there as well. So what we're really talking about is potentially having this 200 to 300 times, 200 to 300 teams communicating all this information. So you think of the challenge, right? What we're moving from is, you see the screen on the left, we call it sneaker net, where you're just taking with your feet and your sneakers and you're taking a piece of paper and carrying it to someone's office, or you're putting it in the nursery crib, right? But there's all this information, right, that is being communicated throughout organizations manually, right? And we're now moving that to a more central model. As you know, it's all on the internet, and it's providing the accountability, auditability, and transparency. So any of you that have access to the system are going to be given access to these reports, based on the permission level that's been set up. Okay, so on the what is EBuilder, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Everly, and he's going to take you through kind of the helicopter overview of the system, if you will. We'll turn it over to Joe.
Can you hear me okay? Great, thank you. Thank you, John. Again, my name is Joe Everly. I'm the manager of solution engineering for the West Coast. I've had the pleasure of working with Bob's team quite a bit in developing and defining the requirements for the system based on the feedback that they have received. So I want to give you kind of a helicopter view, or maybe a 10-15 minute overview of EBuilder. I've got a bunch of screenshots on here that I'll walk you through. And then if needed, we can actually go into the tool, and I can show you some things in there as well. So what is EBuilder, you ask? Well, EBuilder is a web-based tool, which means you can access it from anywhere, wherever you are, whether you're in the field, you're at home, except you cannot access it when you're on vacation. We do not allow that. So just keep that in mind. It is a single platform system, and what that means is that all the information is held in a single database. Why is that important, or what does that mean to you? Well, if your primary responsibility is to manage costs on your projects, you're going to have access to all of the costs. If you manage single projects, or if you manage multiple projects, you can roll all of that cost into all of single reports. If your responsibility is document management on a project, that's going to be housed in the same database that the cost information is, or the schedule information is housed. From a reporting perspective, what that means is, in real time, your reports are now updated with real-time costs, real-time document-related information, or real-time process-related information, RFIs, action items, and so forth. So it really minimizes the channels that you have to use in order to manage all of those things across all of your projects. From an ease of use perspective, it's very important that a new tool be easy to use. One of the things that we've done is incorporate the ability to integrate with Microsoft Office. By show of hands, how many of you are familiar with Microsoft Excel? Right? Everybody knows how to use it. Email, same thing. Microsoft Word, all of that. Great. We incorporate all of that into EBuilder, making the tool much more friendly to use. And then from a configurability perspective, we know as a company that everybody using EBuilder is going to use it in a different way. Their needs are going to be different. The requirements are going to be different, which means and translates into the tool must be able to support those differences. And so whether you're with the state, you're with the specific districts, or you work as a contractor, AEC, et cetera, we are going to be able to configure the system so that it meets your specific needs. Now, what that often translates into is I only need to see specific things as a contractor or as an architect. And so what we do is turn off everything else. The idea that less is more is very important to me. So if I'm working in the system and my job is to do just 2 things on a project, when I log in, those are the only 2 things I'm going to have access to. Okay? Next. Okay, so I want to start off by giving you just kind of, again, the helicopter overview by starting with a question. And the question is, and it's a rhetorical one, but something that you'll need to ask when you move on to a system like EBuilder is, when does a project become a project? It's a very simple question, but to everybody in the room, the answer is going to be very different. When does a project become a project? In EBuilder, you can start a project, let's say, in the planning stage. So if you work in the planning group or a planning organization where it's your responsibility to do planning, you're going to have the ability in the tool to bring together three things. The first is, what kind of funding do I have available in my projects? A single screen, I can add my funding. My plan consists of active projects, those projects that have been already initiated, those projects I'm spending money on, those projects I'm managing the schedules on. Single screen, you can pull that information into the tool. And then finally, a plan consists of future projects. Those projects that are in the planning stages have not become active projects yet, but still from a planning perspective, I need to know the impact on that, on my plan of adding those projects. So what does that mean? From a single screen, I can do all kinds of what-if analysis, planning, and be able to determine what my 5 or 10 or 15-year plan is going to look like. Cost management. I want to start with funding sources, and I'll get into a little bit more detail. Bob and his team has communicated to us the importance of managing the funding sources in the state down to the penny. And so we put a lot of effort into configuring the systems, creating the ability to manage those funding sources on your individual projects, and that anytime roll up those funding sources into a report at the program level and be able to see exactly where you're at on your funding sources. Budget.
Move the boom mic closer to your mouth.
There.
Bend it a little bit. Let me bend it more.
Okay, little technical adjustment. Budgets. EBuilder is going to give you the ability to, again, to manage your budgets on your projects, including all of the budget changes that are associated during the life cycle of the project. All of your commitments or contracts and POs, same thing. Within the system, you're going to be able to do all the contract management within EBuilder. Invoices, pay-ups, all of that can be managed on the single platform. And then also the ability to create cash flow in the system.
It's cutting in and out.
Test, is that better? There we go. Okay. Okay, so multiple sources, multiple funding sources. I want to talk about that in detail. We've been given the requirement by PSFA, Bob and his group, to be able to manage those funding sources. So at the project level, you're going to be able to define your funding sources, and then as you're managing transactions against those funding sources, the system is automatically going to track where you're at on those sources. In addition to that, you're going to be able to set up rules that allow you to distribute the invoices across multiple funding sources if you need to. So in the event where costs are coming in on your projects and you need to split those costs across multiple line items in your contract, you can also do that at the funding source level as well. So again, anytime you're going to be able to roll up both project level into the program level and then set to your funding source controls on your projects. Process management. In the tool, we've modeled a number of the processes that you guys are going to be participating in. On the screen, there are a few of the examples that we have built into the system. And what this is going to give you as an organization is, number one, predictability. So that every time, let's say, an MCR or an approval of some kind comes into the system, it's going to be handled and managed in the exact same way. Why is that important, or what does that mean? From a reporting perspective, if you're a project manager or regional manager, you're going to know exactly where you stand on all of your processes. Documents management. EBuilder provides you a centralized repository where all of your documents are going to be stored. It is template based. It's also, you may find some of the features a bit unique in that it is email enabled. So that means every project can have its own unique email address, and documents can be sent directly into the project. What that does is, obviously, when you're working on a project where you have multiple folks involved, where some documents are stored on network drives, some are stored on folks' laptop, it's going to provide that centralization that you're going to need. In addition to a lot of other features there that are going to be utilized as part of the system as well. Schedule management. EBuilder is a milestone-based scheduling tool, which means it is focused on the needs of owners. So as a district or as a state, you'll have the ability to manage all of your milestone-based schedules directly in the tool. And then what that equates to is that on your reports where you have, let's say, cost and schedule-related information, you're going to be able to update those in real time. And then finally, kind of where the rubber meets the road is on the dashboards and the reports. So EBuilder is going to define a set of reports for you so that across your projects, across your program, automatically your reports are going to be updated. You're also going to have the ability to set notifications so that you can send reports actively out of the system. So every Monday morning when I come into the office, my reports are going to be in my email at 7 o'clock. Okay. Next, I think we're going to talk PSFA training.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Selena Romero, and I'm the HR and Training Manager for PSFA. HR and training go hand in hand because organizational development is such an important factor of HR. So organizational development starts, of course, with our employees, and I'll introduce a couple of our trainers that we have today. There's 3 of us in the group. I've been with PSFA for about 6.5 years, so this is the 3rd system that I've trained for SIMS, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to introduce our trainers. I'd like them to come up and say a few words just so you know their faces and they're familiar to you, and when they go out to your project in your district, you can point them to the right restaurants in the area for lunch. We'll go and start with Rob Edelman. He's our newest trainer to PSFA.
Yes, my name is Rob Edelman. I'm glad to be here. I'm pretty new to PSFA, but I bring about 14 years of technology experience. I also spent about 3 years working with high-end custom home builders and obtained a Green Certified Professional Certificate through the NAHB. So I'm really excited about it, being here about this program. I've had a lot of experience with databases, and I just think you're going to benefit greatly from it. And again, I look forward to working with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Next we have Pam Delgado.
Hello, I see a lot of familiar faces. Pam Delgado. I've been with PSFA for 6.5 years, and previously to that I worked with the very first system that PSFA DCU introduced to us, so I have experience on all 3 systems as well. And I worked with the design team in building this, and all of your concerns and all of your input plus all of ours was taken into consideration. I think you're really going to like this, and I'm looking forward to going out and training you all.
Thank you. All right, what we're going to talk about is the training plan, how this was executed and what you can expect. We're going to talk a little bit about the timeline, how we prioritize projects for training, give you a tentative schedule so you can see where we'll be in the next or in the 12 weeks once the system goes live, how you can register for training for courses or for the classes, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to support the system. One of the very first things we did in the training division is the needs analysis, which was completed in October. And that needs analysis started with the matrix of the role and responsibility of every single person or every single user type within the system. We then had the regional managers give us input for the projects to determine which users and which projects would go live into eBuilder. And although a lot of the data is going to be migrated, the projects were prioritized based on need, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The stage 2 and stage 3 is what we're currently in right now, which is development of training materials and the training program design, how we're going to implement this, how we're going to evaluate the classes to improve, and the areas that we'll touch base, especially the modules, and I'll show you a little bit about the schedule. The program implementation is going to be 12 weeks. In that 12 weeks, the 3 trainers will be traveling around the state training eBuilder to project-specific groups. And I'll talk a little more about how we'll invite you to those training sessions and who will be included. The project close and conclusion is just when we evaluate how training went, best practices, lessons learned, and it'll close the training implementation portion of the project, and then we'll move into regular scheduled training where anyone can register for those sessions and where we'll be training based on project need. This is our tentative schedule, and it is contingent upon resources, logistics, of course. The very first week we will start in Albuquerque, the Albuquerque-Bernalillo area. We're not quite sure on the venue yet. And projects in those areas will be invited to that initial training. eBuilder will be here to support the trainers. So all 3 trainers will be available, as well as a few eBuilder staff for the very first initial week. And then we'll be traveling around the state. And since there are 3 of us, sometimes one trainer may be in one location and another in another location, for example, on week 6. Or actually, week 7, we have one trainer in Clovis and one in Cobre. So we'll be splitting up and traveling around the state. I want to talk a little bit about how this was determined. What we did is we looked at projects that would be less than 50% complete on January 1st of 2012. Those projects, we identified 49 projects, which was about 125 identified users and 80 unidentified users, which means those contracts may have not been awarded yet. Based on the status of those projects, we were able to prioritize to see which projects would actually be trained first. So those that would get the greater use of the system initially, if the project was about to go into construction or was already in construction, those projects will be trained first. The eBuilder training session is scheduled for 3 days. So I know 3 days it seems like a long time to pull you away from your job, but I do want to explain that schedule a little bit. Part of that needs matrix was to determine the role each user would play in the system. So as we train eBuilder, we'll train all the modules that are relevant to everyone, and then we'll start to dismiss people based on roles. So if you're, for example, a consultant, you may not have to be there for the full 3 days. If you're a design professional, you probably will be. So it just depends on the role that you play in the system and how long the training will be. But we won't make you sit through 3 days and watch some of the modules that aren't relevant to your role. And we'll try to be as entertaining as possible, I promise. So the first 12 weeks, this is our tentative schedule, and we will publish more information as it becomes available. When can you register? What we'll do is we'll have we're right now in the middle of, or at the beginning of implementing an LMS, or a learning management system. That system will be an online registration for the eBuilder modules that we'll be training, and you will receive an email based on the project that you're involved in. So for some of the projects that were identified, we've already identified the users that will be trained, and we'll send you an email and invitation to that. And then if we have seats open within that training session, we'll open it up to the rest of the users. In addition to being the training staff, we are also the support staff. So if you have questions throughout the process or after training, you can contact any of the three of us. If you call our office, which our phone number is listed in the handout, and I'll show it again. It'll ring to all three of our phones, so you'll always be able to get in touch with someone. And just in case you can't find one of the three trainers, we just trained 8 people in administrative training so that we would have backups if there was something in the system that needed to be done, user setup, project setups, etc. One of the things about PSFA that you'll find is we are continually improving. We are implementing a help desk ticketing system which can track and trend issues that come into our office. So as those issues are trended and reported upon, we will be posting them to the website for an FAQ or frequently asked question. So if you go to our website, you may be able to find the answer to your question before you call us, but you can always call us. You can also email us. We have an email address that will go to all three trainers. That way there's always somebody available to help you. The learning management system will have online web-based modules eventually. Initially it'll just be for registration, and there will be some handouts. But one of the things with EBuilder is that Joe showed us yesterday is there's a capability to click on a link when you're in a module and you need help, and it'll take you directly to a resource. So it's very intuitive. It's very, very user-friendly. Here's our contact information again, and it's also in the handout that we gave you. So if at any time you have questions, you can contact any one of us. What we're going to do now in closing is go ahead and take some questions from the audience and from online. So if you're on the webinar, you can enter your questions in the chat box, which is on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Anyone with questions?
Hello, Selena. So the training seminars are project-based. If you have a design team and consultants that are based out of Albuquerque and your project is in another district, does the design team need to sign up for the out-of-district training session, or can they sign up for an Albuquerque training session?
We normally like to train the projects together. However, with that being said, we will be offering the sessions in Albuquerque, so you could sign up for an Albuquerque one if you know you're not available for travel.
This may be for Rob. When are we going to call a project a project? Is it going to be when the council gives planning and design money, or is it going to be when you're actually awarded construction money?
It can be even before that. What we have established is that at any time it makes sense, we'll call it a, this mic has to be real close to my mouth for you to hear me. So if, for instance, we have identified, or the district's identified a project long before the council or the PSFA have been involved, you can request that we start tracking the project. That gives the district the ability to load up even your funding sources and be able to make reports to your school board, superintendent, so on and so forth. So at any point, it's made very flexible. If you start a project in your system, we can always load it then into this system at a later date as well.
The invitations to training, if we do in fact have a project or projects that have been awarded council money and we're in planning and design, will we get an invitation? Okay.
The 49 projects that were identified will go first in the first 12 weeks, and then we'll schedule based on need after that. So when those awards happen, we'll start setting those projects up in the system. We contact the regional manager and say, okay, let us know who your project team members are, and then we send the invitations at that time. So we work closely with the regional managers to make sure we're including everyone that needs to be included with the project.
You mentioned that this program would be available to districts to use for their own projects that weren't partnered with PSFA. How's that going to work? Are we going to have to buy a separate subscription to this, or is that handled through the big one?
Only Gallup. Everybody else is going to have free access to it. No, it'll be available to you.
We have some questions from the web.
All right, we're going to take a couple of questions from the web.
Can you read it? Or you want me to?
Okay, the question is, will EBuilder SIM software work on Apple Intel platforms and be supported, unlike past systems?
Okay, so the EBuilder is officially supported on Internet Explorer. However, I personally and a lot of people in our company are big Mac users. So I carry a MacBook Air. I use Safari, which is a browser on the MacBook Air. And I'm going to get about 95% of the functionality is going to work. What's not going to work is what's called an ActiveX control, which is the red line markup tool. So Joe had shown a screen capture. If you're going to be doing design review within Safari, because that control is not supported on a Mac, you can't use. However, I also have a piece of software called Parallels. There's also one called Bootcamp. Parallels is about $90 or $150, depending on where you get it. And it basically allows me to run Windows on my Mac. So my MacBook Air runs both as a Macintosh, and then I just hit a button, and it's also a PC in real time. And that's how I'm able to, if I want to do a redliner markup, which again is usually reserved for a few folks on the design side. It will also work on Fox and Google Chrome and a few others as well, to about that 90%. But the 100% is still going to be on Internet Explorer. That is about 90, it's in the 90+% of people who access it. That's still the dominant browser.
Thank you. The next question is there file size limitations for attachments?
Sure, there is no file size limitation for attachments. In addition to that, there is no file storage limitations as a system as a whole. So with the EBuilder, you get unlimited file storage capabilities.
Thank you. The next question is, can you explain the ability to integrate with contractors' existing project management systems?
Okay, so there's really two ways to answer that. EBuilder can integrate with anything, but there's a practicality to that answer. A lot of contractors are using popular contractor tools such as maybe Prolog, or they're using Primavera's Contract Manager. And EBuilder is part of an organization called AGC XML, which is the Associated General Contractors, and it's essentially a translation software. So we've had that, and we've actually been the first to integrate with AGC XML probably about 2 years ago. Here's the but. It has to be really driven and led by the owner, and somebody has to pay for that integration. And a contractor, typically, if they're on a job for a year or less, it typically doesn't pay to go through that whole integration aspect for that such short of a duration. So what I would say is maybe that's one of those questions that internally is discussed within PSFA, and I think as a team, everyone has to determine if there's real value. Maybe there's contractors that are repetitively building some of your projects, and there's certain information that needs to get into the system. Then there's one way to do that. The other option is we also have manual import tools that are available in the system today. So today they can export information out of Prolog or Contract Manager as two examples, and you can import that right into EBuilder using the import toolkit that is already within the product that you have. So it is a manual step, but if that information is brought in maybe weekly or bi-weekly, then it's free. You can get that started that way, and then if you see that it's working and you get good feedback, then it makes sense to spend some money, because then you eliminate people having to do that and you get a productivity builder.
The next question is this specific for construction projects at various school districts? Mike, do you want to?
The answer is yes. This is for school projects at within school districts. It would also include the charter schools that sometimes are state charters. They're not. They are their own school district, and it would include them.
The next question is implementation and training both begin on 2/6? And the answer is yes. We will implement the system on 2/6 is the scheduled go live date, and it is also the date for when we will implement the training program and start training. So the first few weeks we probably won't see too much activity within EBuilder, but we expect that to ramp up, and we've specifically targeted projects that we anticipate will have a lot of active activity within the first couple of weeks. Those projects are the ones that are already in construction or just starting construction.
How you require a copy of the handout. Of this, I guess, of the.
Okay. The next question is how can they get a copy of the handouts, the training handouts, and the materials today? We will post this presentation on our website, and we will also have the video of this webinar available to users. Mark, when would that be?
We're going to try to add the live footage from this event, and that shouldn't take very long, so it should be within a couple of weeks.
Okay, so the live footage should be within a couple of weeks, but we can post the material on our website probably today, so that will be at www.nmpsfa.org.
While Selena is getting another question queued up, Mark wanted me to mention that there's a case study as you leave on the table. Everyone has received them. We also have it electronically, so any of those that are online that would like a copy, we can get that sent out to you if you haven't received it already. And there's also, once you log into eBuilder, each of you will notice at the very top, there's a little icon that has a like and a dislike. It's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And we've added that in there a few years ago, and what it does is if you are going to be using the system and you're at a specific screen, any screen and every screen has this like and dislike. If there's something that you think doesn't make sense, if the process that you're following doesn't make sense, you think it's cumbersome, if some of you are doing a repetitive task over and over again and you think that it should be 3 clicks instead of 10 clicks, then you can go ahead and put a dislike in there along with your comment. And what our system does is it actually tracks the last 10 clicks of where you came from. So in addition to your comment, we track that information, and then you will get a phone call. Somebody from our office, a live person, will call you up. We're going to inquire about it. We're going to document it. And then at some point, that information gets enhanced and updated into the product itself. Okay, so we're very serious about the feedback loop and very serious about, that's how we're keeping our clients highly referenceable.
I can attest to that. I was in the eBuilder system and hit the dislike button to see what would happen, and I got a phone call almost immediately, so they're very responsive to your questions. The next question is, will eBuilder be required on all new projects?
There'll be some projects that are small, and it doesn't make sense for us to start up the system, get everybody logged in that. It's scalable, of course, in that respect. We think it can handle pretty small projects, but we're going to have to play that by ear. Again, we want to make sense. If it doesn't make sense to do a parking lot repaving, not that we do that, but the school district might. It doesn't make sense to load it up into eBuilder and do daily reports when it's going to happen in a day, then I don't think it would make sense to use it. But using that as the example on the other side, if we are going to replace a mechanical system and it's going to take some coordination with the roofer, maybe insulation and so forth, that may be a project that's only a couple $100,000. It might make sense, though, to put it into this system so that there's an audit trail. What happens when you document responsibilities, fall in court we called it, is that it makes everybody more accountable. It actually protects contractors, but it protects the owner at the same time. So we would encourage you to think about using it. If there is an advantage, use it.
The next question is, will AECs be required to pay for EBuilder service to use the system?
No. We have a defined team. For instance, for an architectural or professional service, we will probably only go to the primary level, sometimes to the secondary level vendor, but we can't go too deep. It becomes too complicated and it's too expensive for us because we do basically pay for this by the seat. I think that would answer the question.
And also to mention, when I was talking about the projects that were prioritized, there was 50 partner companies that were identified, and out of those companies, there are several of our partner companies that are working on several projects. So it's one user license per person, regardless of how many projects you're working on.
I'd like a link to the News Digest.
Okay.
It's more of a comment than anything like that.
All right. They're indicating that they would like a link to the handout and pamphlet, maybe on the News Digest. So, Mark, that's something that you can. Okay. We'll go ahead and include that.
Will EBuilder use electronic?
Will EBuilder utilize electronic signatures for documents?
So I'll start and then I'll give it to Bob. EBuilder, because of the security that it has within the system today, by virtue of you putting in your username and password, and by checking a box in the workflow that says that you're approving it, that is as good as a digital signature. Now, different states have different rules about how they're accepting of that technology. So I'll probably push that over to Bob to answer the question of, legally and from a process perspective, have you defined if that's going to be acceptable? Because we do have a lot of our clients that still require a seal and a wet signature, even though we have the digital signature. So it really just depends on what PSFA is going to require.
You all can probably guess if somebody needed a wet signature who it would be. It would be a governmental entity. So at this point, we believe that we've been able to work that through so that simply logging on and using the security of the system which identifies who it is that is giving that approval will be sufficient. I can't promise, though, that it's gonna actually be that way. It may be that you have to scan in a wet signature. It may be that we have to put in snail mail a wet signature on something or another. On new technology and leaving behind the pad and pen, there are always concerns. I hope you can appreciate that. We don't manage, while we recommend payment for contracts, for instance, we don't manage or have any real say to Department of Finance Administration that cuts the checks, and that's where most of those decisions are made. But at this point, we think that it is going to be managed through the system. We believe, for instance, payment applications, which are very important to move quickly so that everybody gets paid, that is something that we are quite comfortable saying that if it's processed through the system, you sign it. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is, where does the contractor come into play on this software and training? Once the contract is awarded to the general contractor, it's almost immediate. That's how they'll interact with the design professional in the district. So once they're added to the project, it'll be immediate that they'll be an EBuilder. Let's take some questions from the audience. Does anyone have any questions?
Dr. Christo.
Bob?
You said that this will work on mobile devices. Is it an app that needs to be downloaded, or is it just through the internet?
So currently, we have the iPad app that is out and working. So if you go to the App Store, you can download that, and it is a true application. And I have to make the distinction. It also works within a browser on any of the tablets. But as you know, those of you that have tablets, that's very cumbersome if you have to use your finger to actually log in through the browser. So we actually have an actual application. The iPhone app for us is coming out, I believe it's already in beta for our users, but it's going to be officially coming out, I believe, by the end of the year. And then the Android is going to follow about a month or two after that.
I can envision how a general contractor, of course, would have active participation with EBuilder. How about subcontractors and vendors? Are they going to need training, and are they going to be major participants in the system?
Generally, no. Usually it's just the general contractor that will have most of the interaction, but of course there could be special circumstances. We have consultants that play a role in the system depending on the project. Sometimes we'll have some roofing consultants or TAC consultants. So it depends on the project, but usually it's the general contractor that will field everything. Okay, the next question is, what will be the cost to the state and or to each school district for EBuilder?
The cost, that was the question, and I had to go up and ask our financial guy too, because all of this has been in final negotiation. To the cost to a project, the district, or to the state of using a system like EBuilder. There's a lot of answers to that question. The first thing I want to answer on that question is, why do you use it? Regardless of the other two systems that didn't work as well as we want, we have lowered litigation to nothing within all of the thousands of projects that we have done by all in court and accountability. So there is a cost savings certainly to using the system. I can also report that whenever we do a project, it is going to scale depending on the number of users. So we can't specifically say what a project or what a district is going to pay for the system, depending on how many people are on it, the complexity of the project, so on and so forth. I'm really happy to report, though, that through negotiations and with EBuilder, we have been able to cut our cost in half with this enhanced system over what we had paid for the previous system. What's the dollar amount? The dollar amount. What's the dollar amount?
The previous system was costing about $350,000. And the EBuilder system's annual license fees estimated for the number of seats that we're going to be using is about $150,000.
So again, it's up and down, but annually we're looking at $150,000. It could be $200,000 depending on how many people are on it. It could be more if a lot of people are on it. And that would have to go back to the project cost. Whenever you're looking at that amount of money off of an annual budget of somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million, it's a pretty small amount.
So what I heard you say was you're getting the same amount or double the value for half the price, right? And we're happy to provide that for you.
Let me just say, you can save a lot of money by not driving a car because you don't have to buy insurance, you don't have to put gas in it or anything else. So whenever you're managing, I'm very sensitive about those kinds of questions. I know before PSFA and our organization and our standard contracts and everything came into place, there was a litigation rate that was well above 10% of construction projects in schools in the state. Any one of those cost $100,000 just to get started. So it's a lot of money that nobody benefits, and not just that. It's not just the money. Whenever you have professionals and schools tied up in that, it's more than just the lawyer's fees that are being paid. It's the vendor who's having to spend his time in court. It's the teachers. It's the administration. The numbers are really large. And what we don't want to do is to have any management tool or any system that's not working for everybody. So I really appreciate you letting us know when something's not working right so that we can keep working on it.
Any more questions from the audience? The question is the system similar to the construction reporter in the sense that it will keep track of upcoming projects for bidding purposes?
I can answer that. The answer very simply is yes. Within the system, once you, and it's the reason why I asked that question early on, when does a project become a project? Because the EBuilder, it's whenever you decide it becomes a project. So anytime you are creating data, saving documents, entering information on a project, that is in fact when you can turn it into a project in the system. Now as it relates to that question, whether that's in the planning phase, whether that's in the procurement phase, construction phase, whenever that happens to be, that's in fact when the system can begin managing it and you can begin creating reports and tracking and managing that project.
The next question is EBuilder the program that describes the condition of schools for project rankings in connection with PSFA funding or PSEOC funding?
No, it's not. That's a separate system. That's called our Facility Assessment Database. The vendor that we use for that is BFA. And that information is available on our website, or if you send us an email, we can give you more on that. But it's a separate database.
In some cases. Okay, the next question is, will we be utilizing the software as email communication? Within the system there is a communication mechanism, but it will be utilized as part of the main communication for the entire project. Did you want to talk about the email feature?
Sure, I can add on to that. As I mentioned earlier, EBuilder integrates with Microsoft Office, and I also mentioned that it integrates with email as well. So what that means is that whether you're communicating from within EBuilder outside, sending information from EBuilder to somebody outside of the system, it's going to be able to track that. Whether you're sending information into the project or directly into the system, it's going to be able to track that as well. And then in addition to that, because all of this communication is going in and out of that single platform or that single database that I talked about, you're going to have a complete record or a history, an audit trail of all of that information.
The next question is, can we use our own Office documents to upload to EBuilder for example, like field reports, or is it something that you have to fill out within the system?
Yes, the answer is yes. EBuilder is going to support and give you the capability of adding and attaching really any kind of document to things like workflow. So whether it's Word documents or Excel documents, PDF documents, drawings, etc., you can attach those and include those as part of a submission into EBuilder or distribute those directly out of EBuilder.
The next question is, how long is the project information available to a district after the project has been closed?
The project information is available indefinitely.
Okay, we're just going to take just a few more questions. With multiple funding sources, how are P applications funded and paid through EBuilder?
all funding sources are going to be established at the funding level, which is the highest level of a project. When a commitment is entered into, let's say a general contractor uploads his schedule of values into the EBuilder system, it goes through a routing process where the regional manager, who is the owner on behalf of the state, will elect to, by line item in the schedule of values, assign the funding for the district. Let's say they have a portion of HB 33 and a portion of GO bonds. They can elect to pro rata establish that the district share will split between those two, or if at the instruction of the school district they want certain parts of the project to be paid for with HB 33 and other parts of the schedule of values identified with GO bonds, that can also happen. But what will happen is that each contract will have a state share and a local share, and the system that EBuilder has developed has a button-click automation so that the regional manager can quickly either make custom changes to the state-local share by line item or establish the same state and local share across line items, across multiple funding sources.
Should I say something more on that? I think it's important to note that we have different people that are paying the bills. It's important to the vendors to realize that you only have to do under this new process one payment application, one billing. Everything else and how it's divided happens in the background. And then we track also to see if the payments have been made so that it will be easier for the vendor to see where their payment is. And we hope that that can help us close the gap on some of the slow payments, no matter who's done it. We know that if you're going to do work, you're going to want to do more work for us if we get you paid.
All right, last question. Can we export budget and expenditure information directly from our accounting software into the system, or will we have to manually enter accounting lines and budget expenditures?
EBuilder is going to give you the ability to do both. So John mentioned earlier the import toolkit. We are providing the import toolkit to all the users. So if you have budget information or you have contract information or payment information that you need to get into the system, you can very simply use that import toolkit. That's going to allow you to bring that information with a couple of clicks within the system. That's in addition to, we know that there are cases where you have to manually go in and enter something. Maybe it's one item that was missed. We're going to provide you with the ability to do that as well.
All right, last question. Can this be utilized for non-PSFA funded projects?
Yes, the answer is yes if it's a school project. At this time, the system is limited to public school projects. And again, that includes both charter that are under districts as well as charters that are state charters.
All right. Well, this will include our webinar for today. Thank you very much for joining us. And I just want to let you know that the materials and the handouts, the training handouts and materials we distributed today, as well as a copy of this PowerPoint, will be available on the PSFA website. And then within a few weeks, we'll have the video recording also available. And you can look for a link to that on the PSFA News Digest if you subscribe to that, or on the PSFA website.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being a partner.